In 2013, a low budget movie came out called Begin Again. It told the story of Dan Mulligan, who was down in his luck A&R man, who stumbled into a bar in New York to drink away his regrets, only to discover that it was an open mic night. And on the stage, Greta James, somebody that he didn't know, a young woman, was up singing a song with her acoustic guitar. And something special happened in that moment. This is how the scene plays out.
So you find yourself at the subway with your world in a bag by your side, and all at once it seemed like a good way. You realize it's the end of the line. For what it's worth, here comes the train upon the track, and there goes the pain. It cuts to black. Are you ready for the last act? To take a step you can't take back. Taking all the punches you could take, took them all right on the chin. And now the camel's back is breaking again, again. For what it's worth, here comes the train upon the track, and there goes the pain. It cuts to black. Are you ready for the last act? To take a step you can't take back.
It's a great little movie. It's well worth watching if you haven't seen it already. But there's something that's happening in that bar that is quite interesting to me. Dan is having an experience that nobody else is having. Now, the director helps us to see and understand this by quite literally getting the instruments to play themselves. Because in that moment, Dan, alone in the room, is hearing what others can't. He can hear the full band. He can hear it all come together. And that's why he has an experience unlike anybody else in that room. Now, you might wonder why it is that we're talking about something like this whenever I should be talking about GIS, but the clue maybe is in that message on the screen. I wonder, are you ahead of me where we're going to go? We're not talking so much about hearing what others can't, but we're talking about being able to see what others can't. And that is the bold claim that Esri, the company that makes ArcGIS, for instance, makes. It enables you to see what others can't. In fact, Mark Enzer, the geography teacher from England, talks about this as being geography's superpower, our ability to see things that other people can't see. And it is amazing whenever we're sitting and looking at a landscape, just how much of that comes through. In fact, I think there should be a rule. I think there should be some kind of law that any time that a geography teacher gets on an airplane, that we should have automatic right to the window seat. I don't know if you're like me, if you don't end up getting the window seat and you see the person in the row in front of you get in at the window seat, and just before takeoff, or just after the plane's taken off, they close the blind. They close the blind. That lovely view, and they close the blind. Don't they know there are meanders out there to feast their eyes on? Don't they know there are even oxbow lakes for you to be able to look down and go, oh my goodness, look at what's down there? I think there should definitely be a rule that geography teachers should have the view out the window. Because when we look out the window, we see things that others can't. So I'm going to share with you now a photograph that I took out of an airplane window a couple of summers ago as I flew into Tenerife. Now, I want you here to have a look and see what you can see. I want you to notice what you see in that landscape. Others would just look out and see a beautiful island. But what are you seeing? You're seeing the topography, aren't you? The shape of the land. You're seeing those deeply incised V-shaped valleys. You're seeing how the drainage pattern has caused that significant erosion on the way down. You're seeing here to the top right, the cloud coming in. You're maybe making some assumptions about prevailing wind there, that perhaps the northern side of the islands get more cloud and rain than the southern. You're probably making some assumptions then about what the vegetation will be like. Down here to the bottom left, you're noticing the scale of this because you're seeing a little boat. You're getting a sense of just how big this island is, and follow that on up and you see some evidence of human settlements. You can see some green there, and far in the background you can actually see the airport, not the airport that you're going to land on, but the airport nonetheless. And what we can do whenever we look at a landscape like this as a geographer is to place conceptualized layers onto the landscape itself. We see what others can't. Peter Jackson, in a seminal and very important article in the Geography magazine in I think about 2007, said this: thinking geographically provides a language, a set of concepts and ideas that can help us see the connections between places and the scales that others frequently miss. That's why we should focus on geography's grammar as well as its endless vocabulary. Now, he was talking about the vocabulary being things like place names, but the grammar being the theories and the concepts. And that, he said, is the power of thinking geographically. We take these conceptualized layers and we place them onto the landscape. And I think that that is very much at the heart of what it means to think geographically. So how does this relate to GIS? Well, I think this sense of conceptual layers is very analogous to GIS, because what it does is turns the conceptual layers into literal layers. It's a way of managing and manipulating the vast array of information to turn the complexity into clarity through the use of those literal layers. So let's go using the power of GIS to that place that we've just been visiting. There is that very landscape looking out from the window of the plane, La Gomera. You can see the steep-sided valleys. You can see the drainage patterns. You can see the settlement. You can see the runway. But we don't just place metaphorical layers on here, conceptualized layers. We can literally turn on the layers. This is a volcanic island. Wouldn't it be interesting to see what the geology of it is like? That's no problem. We can turn on a layer. And we notice that there's a bit of a pattern here to the geology. I wonder what it's like when we go down here. Differences in the geology. I wonder how that relates to the settlement patterns there. Where are the settlements found? Or maybe it's better for us to zoom out to a different scale and see where the settlements are in totality here. And we can see that most of them are small settlements scattered around, but there is a large settlement here. Now, why is it over here? When we zoom out a little bit further, we see, oh, that's proximity to Tenerife. This is a small island. To be able to go from Tenerife across here, or from La Gomera to Tenerife, is a good thing, to use the services and so forth there. But let's come back into La Gomera a little bit more. Let's look in more specific detail about how these settlements are located around here. Is there a pattern to these settlements? Well, I wonder how they relate to the road network. This is a particularly challenging landscape here. The roads can't just go anywhere. There's particular places where they need to go. And we can absolutely see that there's a relationship between the roads and where the settlements are. In fact, if we zoom in a little bit closer, we're able to see that the roads are following up through the valley bottoms or zigzagging along the ridges, and that's where the settlements tend to be. So what we're able to do with the GIS is to take those conceptual layers that we have just been considering as we look out of the airplane, and we can turn them into literal layers, those layers and many, many more. And we can start to see that set of relationships and patterns that exist in this landscape that we were encouraged to look at. So why should we study GIS? I guess I would take a step back and ask a more fundamental question. Why do we study geography? And the answer, at least in part, is so that we can see the world better. So why GIS? Because that seeing better is enhanced by GIS. GIS enables us to do geography better, and that's why it matters.